resuming the recording. All right, Chuck, go ahead and begin.
Thank you, Joshua. And on behalf of PTAC, the Procurement Technical Assistance Center, my name is Chuck Spence, and we welcome you to yet another outreach session with PTAC. You folks are definitely getting your money's worth out of the PTAC program this week. This is 3 out of 3 just this week. But I think it's fair to say we may have saved the best for last, because we have a real treat in store for our clients and our participants this morning. This outreach is first of its kind. We have Sunset Ridge Development Partners with us, as well as MIDA, the Military Installation Defense Authority. And to the best of my knowledge, and I've been around a little bit, I think this is the first time that we've had the pleasure of having Sunset Ridge, which is a joint venture partnership between Woodbury and Hunt companies, as well as MIDA. And the reason I think this is very significant for you, our valued clients, is that in this presentation, you're going to hear that they, being Sunset Ridge, they are looking for subcontractors. They are looking for suppliers to support them in their projects at Hill Air Force Base and Falcon Hill to help them with their infrastructure needs. And of course, they will get into the specifics of that. Now, before I introduce our presenters, I want to address a little bit about the PTAC program, because we may very well have some people that are new to PTAC. PTAC stands for the Procurement Technical Assistance Center. We are a program out of the Department of Defense, specifically the Defense Logistics Agency, or DLA, and we are partnered. We are pleased to have a wonderful partner in the Governor's Office of Economic Development. And we are a business development program, and we do one thing and one thing only, and we hope to do it well, and that is government contracting. So whether you need help finding a DUNS number, getting registered in the System for Award Management, finding bid opportunities, help with those bid opportunities, all the way down to post-contract administration, PTAC is here for you. So the best thing the best advice I could give you if you are new to the world of PTAC is to go visit our website. We are located at business.utah.gov/PTAC. And there you'll find all about the program, what we do, the services we provide, and most importantly, we have 8 regional managers throughout the state that are here to assist you in whatever need you might have with federal, state, or local government procurement. So take advantage of us. Our services are offered at no cost, and we look forward to working with you. Well, today it's my pleasure to introduce our 2 speakers today. I'm going to first introduce Mr. Taylor Woodbury. Taylor serves as the Chief Operating Officer of Woodbury Corporation and on the company's board of directors. In addition to his administrative duties, he is involved with various departments in the company, including accounting, finance, development, and legal. Mr. Woodbury is active in the real estate development and investment activities of Woodbury Corporation and is a principal in the management of Woodbury's private equity funds. He is the project manager of the Falcon Hill Aerospace Research Park at Hill Air Force Base. Falcon Hill is the largest enhanced use lease in the United States Air Force. Mr. Woodbury graduated with a bachelor's degree in economics. He is a JD, or a Juris Doctorate, and has an MBA degree from the George Washington University and an LLM in taxation from Boston University. So we are thrilled to have Taylor with us today. Our other presenter is David Williamson. Dave works for the state of Utah's Military Installation Development Authority, or MIDA, as Falcon Hill's Business Development Manager. MIDA supports Hill Air Force Base's Enhanced Use Lease, Falcon Hill Aerospace Park, being developed by Woodbury Corporation and Hunt Companies. Before joining MIDA, after retiring from the Federal Civic Service, Dave worked for the Air Force as the Chief of Hill Air Force Base's Enhanced Use Lease Project Management Team and has spent over 13 years associated with the Falcon Hill Enhanced Use Lease program. He is a retired Air Force officer with 22 years of experience with a background in the contracting and mission support career fields. Dave graduated with a BS in finance from the University of Utah and was awarded an MBA from Mississippi State University. Interesting to note, as Dave and I was just talking about it prior to the live program, Dave is also a graduate gemologist from the Gemological Institute of America. He likes to travel and he likes to hike up Utah's beautiful scenic mountains. So we are thrilled today to have both Taylor and Dave as presenters, and we'll now turn the time over to them. One thing I might add is that talking to both of them, they welcome your questions throughout their presentations, so don't be shy. Go ahead and put your questions in the chat box. Joshua will kind of monitor those and feed your questions to Taylor and to Dave. And if needed, if you'd like to ask a question orally, Joshua will unmute you and allow you to do so. So without further ado, we turn the time over to Taylor and David.
Thank you so much. It's really fun to be able to present and talk about Falcon Hill. We've had a really engaging and exciting 2 years here, the last 2 years, through the pandemic and the year before, as we've started developing up in Roy, and excited just to give everybody kind of an update on where we are in the project and give you ideas of where we need assistance. So just real quickly to introduce my side of the presentation. So Sunset Ridge Development Partners, we can jump to the next slide, Josh, is a partnership that came together to develop the Enhanced Use Lease at Hill Air Force Base. And just to give you a little bit of background, when an Air Force Base is in a situation where they have ground that is underutilized. If it's not being used, it has to be given back to the state through a public process. But if it's being underutilized, there's a mechanism in federal law that allows the base to create an enhanced use lease. And essentially what that does is it gives the ability for the base to enter into a public-private partnership, to have a private entity come in and do development under ground leases on federal ground. So Sunset Ridge Development Partners came together and partnered to respond to an RFP for the Enhanced Use Lease at Hill Air Force Base. We were awarded that EUL, that's short for Enhanced Use Lease, in 2008. And Sunset Ridge Development Partners is comprised of two entities. Woodbury Corporation, which is we're in our 102nd year of business in real estate in the Wasatch Front. And the Hunt Companies that is in their 70-year of business based out of El Paso, Texas. Woodbury Corporation, obviously local company. We do a lot of development here locally. Hunt Companies are very large real estate developer. I think they're still the largest owner of privatized military housing in the country. And they kind of have a lot more experience working with the government and doing projects, infrastructure projects and other things for the government than we do. So we're grateful to have them as partners. And the Woodbury Corporation and the Hunt Companies are the 50-50 partners. The way we split responsibilities is the Hunt Companies are primarily responsible for construction management. And so many of the projects you're going to see today have to do with construction management. So Hunt Companies takes lead on that. And then Woodbury Corporation is responsible for property management of the project and doing all the property and asset management after the project is delivered. And then we jointly are doing business development and working with groups to build buildings at Hill Air Force Base. Introduce MIDA on the next slide here.
Yes, thank you very much. I'd like to tell you a little bit more about I would like to tell you a little bit more about the MIDA. Back in the day when this was being put together by the base, the state realized that the size of the Falcon Hill, because of its the vision the base had, would actually go past 4 cities and 2 counties. And one of the challenges that any EUL within a military base has is that once it's put together, they basically take the fence line back and then open that up for private development. The land stays in the federal government, but the opportunity to actually have taxes and annexation and different things like that come into play. And the state had some foresight by saying, you know, we'd like to continue to have this great relationship we have with Hill Air Force Base. And we're going to create MIDA to basically have the overview and the jurisdiction of the land use, and then give it MIDA some powers that would allow and help it to, you know, maximize the effect of what can happen and is happening on Falcon Hill. And so that's what this particular slide talks to. Next slide, please. Now, Hill Air Force Base, I think if you're anywhere near the north part of the state, when Hill Air Force Base is flying its jets, you're going to know where it's at, or at least you're going to know that it's in the area. It's been there since the 1940s. Before World War II started, actually, the Hill was put together, and it has been an integral part of the Air Force. It's one of the three depots in the United States Air Force that takes in not only a mission of actual deployment and with jets that go all over the world, but also brings jets in to, you know, for maintenance work. And it really is an integral part of the northern Utah landscape. It has a big impact as far as economics, and MIDA has been able to be part of that as helping out with the Air Force, the developer, Sunset Ridge Developmental Partners, and then MIDA is an integral part as far as working through state issues and different local issues that have kept the opportunities available to everybody and kept the 4 cities working together to make this a successful project. Next slide.
And, you know, it's interesting as Dave talks about that. I mean, to put this in perspective, Hill Air Force Base drives somewhere around 3 to 4% of the state GDP, just itself. And it's the largest single site employer in the state. So daytime population of somewhere between 20 and 30,000, you know, post-pandemic, we think it's coming back. But, you know, to give you perspective, when we started working on this, the goal of this project is to help the Air Force with aging buildings and infrastructure, okay? So we have about 550 acres that we have access to developments. Basically, as you drive north on I-15, the Enhanced Use Lease comprises everything you see here in color on this map. So it's, I think it's about 4.5 miles of freeway frontage, you know, 550 acres, like I said. And as you drive north, you'll say, oh, hey, there's lots of buildings there. There's lots of things on this path, on this land already. You're right. That's what we're working to clear out. So we've got a right to develop. In 2008, we got a 50-year right to develop this ground. And every year, every time we want to take down a new ground lease, we get a new 50-year term on that ground lease. So we have basically 50 years. We'll have about 38 years left now to request ground leases from the federal government and develop this, this area in color. And as we do that, what happens is, and the reason why MIDA is so, well, MIDA is important for a lot of reasons, as you'll see by the end of the presentation. But one of the reasons MIDA is so important to us is MIDA acts as the trustee for the rent that we pay on our ground leases. So we have a arrangement with the Air Force. We get a ground lease, and then the ground rent that we pay to MIDA. MIDA holds that money in trust for the federal government. And then as the federal government has projects that it wants to accomplish, it can draw on those ground rent funds to develop those projects. Now, something that I think was a key thing for the state of Utah, and I've heard it attributed to a lot of people, so I'm not going to say who came up with the idea, but the team of people working on it came up with a great idea. Normally in enhanced use leases, when money is earned off the ground rent, that money goes back to Washington, D.C. And the local state, or the local jurisdictions don't get to see any of that money. The money gets spent elsewhere in the Air Force. The thing that we have in our agreement for the enhanced use lease in Utah is that as money is generated at Falcon Hill, it goes to MIDA as held in trust, and it gets reinvested back into Hill Air Force Base. So it's a huge benefit to the state of Utah to have, a mechanism that, I always tell people, one day I envision a day where the federal government says, okay, we have a new program, we have a new mission, we get to select where it goes. And the state of Utah could raise their hand and say, hey, I think there's enough money that we could pay for, all of the buildings or equipment, just from the revenue coming from the enhanced use lease. So we've got a long ways to go. We're not there yet. We're still working on, clearing out aging buildings and everything else we're doing here. But as you'll see, there's a lot of potential for this project, and we think we're in, the most dynamic, area of the state of Utah, frankly. So it's really exciting to have this enhanced use lease. It's something that's going to really mean a lot to Utah going forward. So to date, as I said, we're about 12 years into the enhanced use lease. To date, we've completed just under 700,000 square feet of commercial buildings. And we've got another 650,000 feet of commercial buildings under development right now. So by the end of 2022, we'll be over 1 million square feet of office alone at Falcon Hill. So we're making great progress. And we have the ability to build, retail, office, industrial, hotels, residential. We can't build on this property here in color because there's other privatized housing on base, but we can build basically any commercial building. And as I said, we have a 38-year right to request ground leases from the Air Force. Okay, next slide. The first area that we developed is what we refer to as the quad area because there's 4 buildings. And this is just inside the West Gate, which is in Clearfield at 650 North in Clearfield. So right as you come in the West Gate, you'll see this in the upper right-hand corner here in the slide, you can see a picture of building 1575. And the missile in front of it. So that's the first building that we built in the Falcon Hill Aerospace Research Park. It was a 150,000 foot building. At the time, it was a build to suit for Northrop Grumman. It's since turned into a multi-tenant building as contracts have changed within the Air Force. And then we followed up building 1575 with 3 other buildings that total, 220,000 feet basically. So date we have 375,000 feet here inside the fence, and we only have all these buildings. There's only 1 vacancy. We've got about 35,000 feet left on the first floor of the building we just delivered in 2019. Everything else is leased up. It's interesting. We something I failed to mention on the last slide, but it's really critical to understand is because of our arrangement in this EUL, we have the ability to develop both inside the fence, inside the secure perimeter of Hill Air Force Base, and outside the secure perimeter. And we also have the ability to move the secure perimeter fence, coordinating obviously with Hill Air Force Base as we have need. And so if we go to the next slide, this area that we call the West Gate area is actually all land that at one time was inside the fence at Hill Air Force Base. So it used to be the fence line ran right along the freeway. And as part of a project we did to relocate the West Gate in Clearfield, we were able to open up about 40 acres for development here at the West Gate. So this again just shows the tremendous benefit to the state. This is land that has never been on the property tax rolls. This is land that has never been able to house additional jobs or provide facilities for contractors. And now we have the ability within that colored area you saw on the map to shift the fence line back and forth, obviously with Hill Air Force Base's consent, and, to use it for commercial development, right in really what is the geographic center of Davis and Weber County. So the first building we built here was a little retail building. If you pull off the freeway, you'll see a Starbucks building there. It has Starbucks and Jimmy John's in it. And then we built a building for U-Star prior to them kind of going away. And we actually, I just got word, we just sold that building back to the state today. And eventually Weber State will take over that building and have an educational, facility in that, in the old U-Star building. So we're really excited about that. Just a couple minutes ago, so that's hot off the press. And then the other thing is we delivered a hotel right in the middle of the pandemic, just when you want to deliver a hotel. We delivered a hotel middle of last year here at the West Gate. So again, this is all land that was inside the fence. We've brought it outside the fence now and been able to start delivering these buildings. Next slide. And then the area that we're focusing on most right now, this is another area again that was all inside the fence. It wasn't ground that was, accessible to the public. We brought about 50 acres of ground outside the fence, right by the Aerospace Museum at the Roy exit in Weber County. And so in the left-hand image here on the slide, you can see the outdoor planes, kind of there just to the left-hand side of the image. If you've been to the Aerospace Museum, it's amazing. You have your bearing. If you haven't been there, you need to go. It's a great asset to the state of Utah. But what happened was Northrop Grumman was looking for a site for a campus for a contract they were competing for, and they selected this site as the site to locate the campus. And so we delivered Building 1 in 2020, and it's a 220,000-foot office building. And then we're under construction. It's so amazing. This picture was not taken that long ago, but we're moving so quickly on this. Building 2 is already, almost complete. It's probably about 4 or 5 months from being totally done. And then Building 3 is just to the, the top edge of this of building, just north of Building 1. And then we're working on Building 4. So in total, we're going to have almost 870,000 square feet of office space just at this campus alone when it's done. It'll be somewhere between 2,000 to 3,000 new jobs that are coming to the area. And this has all happened. I mean, we only learned about, started talking to them about this site in like February of 2019. So this has really all happened in the last like 2 years. I think, I always say this and I wait for somebody to challenge me, but I think this is the largest economic development project over such a short period of time that's ever occurred in the state of Utah. We're really grateful to Northrop Grumman for their support of the state and all of the state legislators and everybody that's helped this GoEd and all the partners who've helped bring this this huge job creator to Utah. But this is really going to change the landscape of southern Weber County in this high infusion of jobs that, last I heard, I think are the average salary of these jobs is 2 times the county average. So amazing benefit to the area, and we're grateful to have this. And again, this was all land that was inside the fence. We were able to move the fence line back and build this office park. Next slide. And so the benefit that the Air Force is getting out of this transaction, we've obviously been able to, build all these buildings, and the state has started getting, tax dollars and getting new jobs to the area, and everything's coming. The benefit that the Air Force is getting out of this comes in the form of PIC funded projects, and PIC stands for payment in kind. So we don't give them cash. What we do is we give them back buildings and equipment. And so the first building that we built was for the 75th Security Forces building. And we built that. If you've, it used to be where you go to pick up your badges. You don't pick up badges there anymore for those familiar with Hill Air Force Base, but it's kind of on the southern side of the base. As I mentioned, we relocated the west gate. So the gate used to be right next to the freeway. Anybody who drove north on I-15 at rush hour time knew where this gate was, even if they weren't going to the base, because traffic was backed up for miles trying to get people into the base in the morning. We were able to shift the gate back to facilitate traffic flows. So we built the gate. We also built a software support building for Hill Air Force Base. And this building is really interesting. Hill Air Force Base has, I'm unable to keep track of current numbers, but I think they have well over 1,000 software engineers working now at Hill Air Force Base. And this building alone allowed us to add another 450 software engineering jobs to Hill Air Force Base. So it was a great building. And then also, we did a very unique transaction. We kept getting told it had never been done like this before, and it hadn't, but we were able to give the Air Force an entire floor of one of our buildings. So first floor of building 1580 now houses the ICBM program office, and the Minuteman III Directorate, to be specific. And so the bottom floor is the Air Force's floor, and then the top 2 floors are private floors that we lease out. I throw on here, and I think this is an important point. We'll talk more about this here in the upcoming slides, but because of our arrangement in our enhanced use lease, we also have the ability to do construction work for the Air Force, stuff that's on EUL ground. And the interesting thing is on all these projects that we've done, so we've acted and we've, through MIDA, MIDA and SRDP have basically handled the construction of these buildings. And we're doing it at enormous savings to the Air Force. So the estimates we had for military construction for the security forces building, we think we were about 40 to 45% cheaper than what it would have cost the federal government if they'd built it on their own. We're 25% cheaper on the West Gate and 25 to 30% cheaper on the software building. So we're providing a huge benefit to the federal government, being able to get them these facilities at really a fraction of the cost. And we don't talk about the time saving as much because it's harder to quantify, but we think we're doing it about twice as fast as the federal government could, build the same building. So we're excited about that, and we've done a great job today and have a good track record of delivering, buildings quickly and substantial savings to what they'd be able to deliver on their own. So with that, we can jump, 2 slides here, and I'll turn time back over to Dave to talk about some of our upcoming projects and opportunities.
Hey, thank you, Taylor. And like Taylor was mentioning, the genius and the synergy that comes together with MIDA working it and the developer working together on this provides lots of opportunities for individuals that have skill sets and have an interest in being involved in this kind of work. Right now, we've taught principally construction work, and that's an important thing that everybody should be aware of, that when these things are built, they're done in a commercial context, but they have Air Force oversight and they have done the Air Force specs. And that's the root cause of why it can be done faster and cheaper, approaching it this way. I was a contracting officer for the Air Force for many years, and this is a very innovative, and it's something that, as a taxpayer, it's a good deal for not only the Air Force, but also for us as citizens. What we wanted to talk about right now is something that's being put together. We're right on the cusp of having it approved, and it's called an Intergovernmental Support Agreement. And what this means is that MIDA will be in a situation working with Sunset Ridge Developmental Partners to go out and find and respond to Air Force needs. And what it is really, it's still what we call a FAR, a Federal Acquisition Regulation contract, but it's a process that takes about 45 days versus months or sometimes years on some of the other projects that are done. And the initial focus of this particular effort will be on construction stuff, doing minor construction for the base. But in the long term, we expect it to branch out into doing things beyond that could include service types contracts and other support things that Hill Air Force Base needs. And so we wanted you to be aware of this, and it's coming up, and it's something that I think would be a benefit to Northern Utah and to people that have the skill sets and are interested in being involved with the base. Next slide, please. Here's some upcoming Falcon Hill projects, and we call state projects. And what we were talking about there is part of the original deal that we put together when I was on the Air Force side. It was the recognition that not only was the developer interested in this, but the state was also interested in it. And as you can tell from what Taylor was laying out, there's been a lot of growth that's happened on the base that will bring lots of new people into it. And a lot more traffic use of that. And as we started looking at it from the state standpoint, their I-15, is currently under construction, but there's a lot of connections that need to be made with the base that will help us to be able to support this additional workload that's coming to Hill Air Force Base. And the state legislature has provided money to build 2 new gates. One's at 1800 North that currently doesn't exist. And that particular project will actually take I-15 onto the base and build, a stacking area between the base and the main street that's outside the fence line. And it will allow the traffic to flow a lot better there. And then also we envision we need, and we're going to actually do the new Roy gate that will allow more stacking distance and better access to the gate. And then to support all that, we have to build some support structures internally as far as roads and some things going on. So all of this stuff was funded and helped out from the state. and the state's willingness to step up to it will allow this project to not only continue to grow, but also allow people that are working there to get in and out a lot faster than they currently can. Next slide, please.
Hey, Dave, just before you leave that slide,
Sure.
The thing I was going to point out on this, so as you're kind of watching, and Josh, can we go back one? Apologize about that. As you're watching for this, that all of these projects will go through a public process to select contractors. So MIDA and SRDP will help facilitate this process. All of these projects are currently funded, so we have we already have well, I should say the 1800 North project is funded. The Roy Truck Gate just got funded through this last legislative session, so we'll have money here mid-year. But all of these projects are imminent. I mean, we are moving full steam ahead. Our goal is to have the Roy Gate relocated by the end of 2022. So we've got our work cut out for us there. But this is one of the reasons, because because we've got SRDP and MIDA driving this process. We have the ability to move these things a lot quicker than would be the process if the federal government gave money to Hill Air Force Base to move the gate and then went through the standard process. So watch for those. We're anxious to get going. We'll likely be doing some road work and some fence relocation work even this year still on base. And all of these projects that we're going to talk about here in this next section will have opportunities for people to participate in and help us out. It's mostly construction at this stage, as Dave said, but the aspiration of this project is much larger. Through the IGSA, there's going to be all sorts of different services and goods that we could potentially procure and help Hill Air Force Base. Through the stuff we're doing with infrastructure, that's going to open up hundreds of additional acres for us to eventually develop. So there's going to be a lot of activity here. And the thing I would say is that the genesis of all this, and just to back up a little bit, the genesis of all this is there was a point in time where there was actually discussion in the federal government about closing Hill Air Force Base. And it was on a list of bases that could potentially be closed. Now, the state, I think that was a wake-up call in some respects, and the state has put tremendous effort into, both our congressional delegation and the state legislatures put tremendous effort into making sure that Hill Air Force Base could never be closed. I mean, if we were to lose 4% of our GDP, just in one fell swoop, if the base were to close, you can imagine what effect that would have as it trickles through the economy. So what we have been hard at work doing, both us and MIDA and the state legislature, is trying to put as many tools in the state of Utah tool bag as we can. And each of these tools we have, the Enhanced Use Lease, the IGSA that Dave just described, the Intergovernmental Support Agreement, all of these tools are making it so that Hill Air Force Base is more competitive. We're doing things faster at Hill. We're doing things cheaper for Hill. We're trying to find ways to make the Air Force Base more efficient. And we hope by doing that, by strengthening Hill Air Force Base, not only are we, all of the things we're doing to help the U.S. military and to help the warfighter and everything that's out there, but we're also, helping shore up, what is a key, piece, if not the cornerstone of the Utah economy. So we're really excited about all these projects, and you'll be hearing more and more about this because we're really starting to snowball right now and have a lot of activity at the base.
Yeah, Taylor, one of the things that he didn't mention, but when the base got the software building, 450 jobs that came out of the ability to build that building and secure building, state of the art. That actually spurred on another program that was coming to Hill Air Force Base. It originally was going to be spread out all over the United States, and they're going to build their own software building to support the mission that's going on there. And it wouldn't have happened if they hadn't have seen what could be done and what was done with bringing that in. I know everybody talks about Silicon Valley in down in Utah County, but there's a lot of software work, a lot of software work is happening up here at Hill, and it's being spurred on by the ability of the Air Force to actually see the construction that we can provide at reduced rates, and then also the opportunity and the synergy that comes together as you bring all these different types of missions together that have a core of software. So like Taylor was saying, there's a lot of things that are happening because of what's happened with Falcon Hill being in existence.
And basically, you know, we're every time we're able to solve a problem or add another tool to the tool belt, we're making the base stronger, but we're also creating opportunities for groups that traditionally probably wouldn't have gone after these contracts, because as MIDA is working on this, or if SRDP and MIDA are working together on something, you know, a lot of the bureaucratic red tape and the things that add, you know, months to your work and huge amounts of money of kind of oversight and administrative cost, we can eliminate a lot of those. Now, not all of them. Obviously, we still have to follow a process, and we adhere very closely to, you know, a public process that we have to go through. But we can, because we're smaller and nimbler and quicker, we're able to, you know, make these things happen, I think, a lot more efficiently, and really work with groups that, you know, like I said, traditionally may not, you know, think about doing work here up at Hill Air Force Base.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's go to the next slide. This is kind of exciting, a focus on an area that has just totally opened up. This area was originally, I think in the plans, we talked about having warehouse space and some business stuff. But the opportunity came with a new mission that came to Hill Air Force Base to bring Northrop Grumman here. And with the Northrop Grumman's landing, there's been a lot of construction work, but also there's some needs for traffic enhancements. So it includes taking if you see the green line there, that's a new road that's going in. And that also we also need to put a new fence line. So that's what Taylor was talking about would happen, you know, this year. And then beyond that, the new Roy Gate will have an enhanced truck security area that will allow better security for trucks coming onto the base. Like I mentioned, Hill's a depot, and it has lots of, you know, things that are going on in supporting and rebuilding aircraft. And we get a lot of truck traffic, and that new gate will allow that to come onto the base and flow a lot easier, better than it has in the past. Then as you might know, the 5600 North interchange that was on I-15, that's in the development phase of actually being expanded. And what will happen there it will bring more traffic onto the base. And we just want to make sure that the feeder routes that go into this new gate and that are up to snuff and up to speed. It also support the additional. How many people are coming into the RIC area, Taylor?
You know, 3,000.
Yeah, I mean,
4,000 potentially.
That used to be an open field, if you will, no one there, and so that's a big concentration that's coming, and we wanted to be able to support that because of the need to get people in and out fast. And with all of this, you're going to see a lot of construction work. It's all going to be competitively offered, and it's going to be kind of exciting for the rest of the northern Utah and the state. Next slide.
So, oh, go ahead, Dave. Sorry, I tried to steal your slide.
Oh, no, that's right. I mentioned earlier 1800 North, and what we've got going on there is, like I mentioned, this area will have a new gate that's way inside the base. It will provide lots of stacking room for cars coming in and off. And it will also allow the 1800 North upgrade that will allow more east-west traffic in this part of northern Utah. And so that it will really be a good enhancement. The area needs to have some work done. We've got an old building that needs to be demolished that's so old that under certain rules, the state couldn't demolish it because it's you know, old enough to be considered a relic. If you go, and I walked through it recently, it's not much of a relic, but it does qualify under the rule set, and that's going to be demolished this summer. And then after that, there's a lot of environmental cleanup. Unfortunately, the base has been an industrial depot, and some of our practices in the distant past weren't as up to snuff to current standards, and so we need to do some cleanup work. But once that's done, then the new interchange will be built, and it will provide not only a better way for people to get off and go out west, but also people that won't need to go east into the base. And we're looking forward to that. So next slide.
And then the thing we're working on right now is we're trying to, I mean, originally we keep getting sidetracked on other really exciting opportunities, but the original goal of this project was to tear down what's known as the 1200 series buildings that are on the west side of Hill Air Force Base. As you drive north from, from Salt Lake, out on the right-hand side, you'll see all these World War II era warehouses that are off to the right-hand side. Those warehouses over time have all been converted to office space. And, right now, there's somewhere in the neighborhood of like 5,000 to 7,000 people, I think, that work there every day. So they're all really old. They operate inefficiently. They're energy hogs. We're working on taking the next payment in kind dollars to demolish about 16 of those buildings and build a brand new administrative building for the Air Force. It'll be about 300,000 feet. It'll be located just north of the quad area that I referred to. You can see the west gate at Hill Air Force Base. This is at the Clearfield exit. So it'll be a new 300,000 foot building we put in there that'll serve the Air Force. And then lastly, next slide, Josh. We also have two 90,000 foot office buildings planned. This is right at the west gate. This will finish out our development of the west gate area that I described. So we're, we have right now, we don't have a lot of land available. It's one of our problems is we're working on trying to get all these infrastructure projects in so we can do more development. The last acreage we have is we have kind of earmarked for two 90,000 foot buildings. We've got about 10 acres here to build these buildings here on the west side of Hill Air Force Base. So that gives you a little bit of a taste of what's coming up here, and would welcome any questions anybody has at this point.
Absolutely.
We don't have any questions in the chat, so we're going to open it up to the participants. Tom Gerke actually just asked, as a small business, where would I go to register to track opportunities?
Dave, do you want to, I don't know that there's a formal tracking. We do publish everything, kind of in newspapers. I know MIDA broadcasts it out, I think on their website as well. Do you have a feel for exactly where stuff gets, if there's a tracking system as well?
The base obviously has, the federal government has a process that they do that, but what we'll probably need to do is have some type of system to catch people's attention, and provide the information to people that are interested in doing this. Frankly, we're just starting this IGSA, and once we get that in place, that's a logical place. And well, honestly, I'll have to get back to you on that. We'll have to talk that over, because we do publish things, but we do it on in the papers and construction journals. And
to be fair too, Dave, I mean, there's been some bids. I mean, there's been some projects that we've put out, but they've basically been construction projects today. And as the IGSA arrangement gets finalized, and as we get more into all this infrastructure and PIC work that we have planned the next 5 years, the need to do this is going to become much greater. So we'll try to push out, and we'll make sure the community hears about, how to track these opportunities. And especially, I'm sure on the IGSA, Dave, you guys will, have some system in place to make sure you get coverage.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, we think the IGSA will be in place in about 90 days. So by that point in time, we certainly will. And we'll work with the sponsors of this presentation to at least so they know where it's at and get that word out.
Darcy Van Orden asks, when will the bidding process
begin? Can I
begin?
just really quickly add to that?
Oh.
I'm sorry, Darcy, 1 second. Can I quickly add to that, Dave?
You, Dariana.
Sure. Yep.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Ariana. I work with MIDA as the chief of staff for Paul Morris, our executive director. And I wanted to say that it's part of our long-term strategy. Right now, MIDA does not have a dedicated website, but that is something that we are putting into place. So that definitely, we will be putting opportunities out on our website. So stand by for further information on that. And then the second thing is we work very closely with GOED, Governor's Office of Economic Development, and a lot of our opportunities are pushed forward through their offices. So that's another thing. Any of our opportunities that will be going out for public review we will be working with GOED in order to get that out. So stand by. So we work really closely with our economic development partners with some of these opportunities. So I just wanted to let you know, MIDA's website is in the work, and it's something that we're developing at this time.
Yeah, and let me be really clear too, that MIDA might be this, we work with the federal government, the Air Force, and then for construction stuff, SRDP is our general project manager, our construction project manager. So they will go through the process of actually selecting prime contractors to do the work. And the primes will have requirements as far as subcontractors. We're mimicking or following kind of the way that the federal government does procurement. So as that comes out, we'll be working together with SRDP to make sure that everybody has a site that they can go to and at least be aware of what's going on. And so it's not just subcontractors, there's also private contractor opportunities.
And I just noticed another question in the chat. So on all of the construction, demolition, infrastructure work, yes, it's all hard bid. I mean, so what we do is we go through and develop the plans, and we get sign off from all of the important Air Force, officials and and MIDA officials, make sure we understand exactly what we're doing, and then we take those projects out to bid for completion of that work. So that's the process we followed on all the buildings.
Yeah, on the demolition, I saw a comment here. We're in the process of coming up with the actual requirement to demolition. Once that is done, then we'll go out and advertise that. I think we're still looking at that happening in about 2 months, if I understand the current time frame for that to be done. So,
yeah, and there's a couple of questions. Sorry, I'm just following the chat here, but there's a couple of questions just kind of trying to understand, how the bidding process works and how does everybody get the opportunity. So a committee is put together that has representatives from MIDA, from SRDP, from the base. An open process is conducted, again, based on complete plans, or as complete as we have. So there's a level playing field in terms of information. And then we put all that information out and bring in bids, and then the committee goes through and selects those bids after conducting interviews. So it's a very standard process. I think you'd see, on other jobs. And traditionally, it's been to select contractors, and the contractors generally come with us to come with their subs and the teams that they're proposing, participate on that. And so, all that process will start here probably in the next couple months, I'd say, for the stuff that Dave was describing up at 5600 South in Roy, for the road relocation and the fence line relocation. And then over the next 2 years, we'll have that process happen, multiple times for the different projects that are coming forward.
yeah, then let me also emphasize that whenever state or federal money is involved, we mimic or follow basic rule sets that make sure that there's competitive processes and it's advertised out. So be assured that those things aren't done, and you'll have opportunities to find those or to be aware of it. And then the bidding is open to anybody.
And what our process to date has been, I mean, it gets published in local newspapers, local magazines, reaching out to groups. We try to get as much, public exposure to the previous construction projects we've done, and we'll do the same thing here going forward. And then, as I said, once we get bids in, we have a committee that we put together that, goes through and evaluates the bids. And so in terms of security clearance, there are some issues that arise when we're doing work inside the fence. Outside the fence, we don't have a lot of the same constraints. So once we've relocated the fence line, We have a lot more groups that can participate traditionally, just because we don't have quite the same restrictions going inside the fence. But it's not, you know, we can help facilitate. If you're not a group that's traditionally worked on Hill Air Force Base and you don't have security passes, we have a process we can go through with you to help get your guys, you know, passes and be able to get them on base. So it's not something where you have to have kind of you know, qualified. We can work with you on that, so long as, you know, U.S. citizens and you know, they can pass this security background checks. Let's see. In terms of briefings, yeah, we're open. Would love to receive feedback from groups who would be interested in talking to us about some of this future work. With regard to the IGSA, definitely want to have MIDA involved as we're talking. And as we get started, the IGSA is something that I think could have lots of potential, but exactly what it's going to be used for initially, we're not. I don't know, Dave. Do you have specific projects that you think are going to happen this year?
Yeah, there'll probably be small construction projects, is renovation type opportunities that will happen on the base. So if you're interested in that, there will be to get on the base, you have to have a background check, and you have to have certain qualifications there that will work with you if you're interested in that. But certainly, if you get if you're awarded that, you'll want to make sure that you have that. So. And then the other thing, the Corps of Engineers is not involved in that. That's one of the things that we provided, and the Corps does a good job, but it takes a long time and it's a long process. And that's one of the advantages that we feel like we provide, is that we can execute a lot faster than the Corps. So to answer that question.
And, you know, knowing the PTAC resource that we have, we will also, you know, push all this information out through GoEd and through PTAC here going forward as well. So I think that'll be a good resource as well as these jobs start coming up to the point, you know, where we've got the website up and running for MIDA and the IGSA.
I think we've got to go pretty quick here, but the disaster company, I'm not sure that we've got that envisioned right now or how that would work, but it's asking about protocols in that. I guess it goes back to the requirement, and I'm not sure that we would have any real. I think the base has a pretty good responsibility to answer that question, so I'm not sure that we'd be involved in that.
The one thing I will say, though, because there was another question about if you have technologies that you think would be beneficial. I would say not this year, but going forward, I mean, one of the things we can do under the IGSA is, you know, provide lots of different services and lots of different equipment. And I think there, you know, could be opportunities down the road to, you know, kind of an informational setting, just explore ideas with Hill Air Force Base and see if it's of benefit, see if it could solve a problem they're having. And then through the IGSA, that may be, you know, possible to implement. But for right now, I think it's going to be mostly responsive to specific needs that Hill Air Force Base has for, you know, infrastructure work, for equipment, for things like that. Is that fair, Dave?
Yeah, I agree. And sorry, I've got a hard break now. So thank you so much.
Go ahead, Dave. I'll close up and I'll be right with you there.
Okay.
I apologize to everybody. We've got a meeting on base that we have to jump over to now, but I'll just answer this last question on furniture. In certain situations, the furniture is part of the project, and we do try to add that in where it's required. And so under the IGSA, that is something that could potentially happen, and there could be need for furniture going forward. It'll just be kind of project specific.
Okay, so Taylor and Dave, you've got to run, correct?
Yeah, and I'll just say, Chuck, feel free. I'd be happy to field emails, or my associate Jason Prisbila, who I know you've been talking to. Please direct them to him, and we'll get any other answers that we need. I apologize, everybody. I'm gonna have to jump off as well.
Okay, very good. So to their point that they made just earlier, it would be very, very important to make sure that you are a client of PTAC, so that you are in our client database. because they are going to push these opportunities, as Taylor mentioned, to GoEd and to PTAC, and then we're going to push those out to our client emails who are in our database. So if you are not a PTAC client, it's very, very important that you reach out to your regional manager in your area. And again, you just go to our website. Again, it is business.utah.gov/PTAC to find who your regional manager is. And if you haven't met with your regional manager in maybe over a year, it would probably be a good idea to reach out to them, get to update, make sure your email is current, so that when these opportunities coming from Sunset Ridge are pushed to PTAC, we can push those out to you. But you must be in our database, so that would be crucial and critical. We will get these slides to you, and they will also be posted on our PTAC website, so look for those soon. Joshua, we could probably have these out to these participants in the next, I'm guessing next 2 or 3 days, can't we?
Absolutely.
Okay. So we thank you for your participation today. Again, we'd like to thank Taylor and Dave for their presentation. LSI and to Lori, who helped coordinate this, a shout out to you as well. So again, reach out to your regional managers. That's make sure you're in our database. And with that, we'll let you go and to get back to your responsibilities at work. And we will see you soon. Take care.